This is Greg Orloff with IIoT World, and I am here today with Brandon Bromberek. Brandon's the Vice President of Measurement Solutions with Emerson Automation Solutions. So welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Good to be here.
No, you're welcome. So we're coming off the tail of one of the big manufacturing shows here in the U.S., the IMTS, and one of the points that was resonating in my head on the flight back was the concept of sustainability and how are organizations managing that in today's. It's becoming more and more of an imperative. So from your perspective, it is a major imperative for companies right now. How can they leverage technology and, most importantly, IIoT to achieve sustainability goals for their businesses?
Sure. Well, to start, sustainability is a pretty broad term. There's a lot to that. It means a lot of different things to different organizations, and a path towards a more sustainable future can manifest itself through many different forms. Decarbonization is something we hear a lot about, energy efficiency, emissions management, and so on. And, really at Emerson, regardless of the avenue a company is taking, the main point that we try to reiterate is that there shouldn't necessarily be a completely different approach to tackling goals around sustainability as there would be to really any other business objective. As regards technology and IoT, the implementation of technology that can deliver information on one hand, and then being able to gain meaningful insight and ultimately take action on the other is really what we see as the sort of 1-2 punch that can deliver on objectives in that sustainability arena the same way it has with more traditional business objectives. In terms of the implementation, everybody's out there setting net zero targets. Emerson's no different. We've got a goal to be net zero scope 1 and 2 by 2030 and all in by 2045. But if you can't measure something or monitor something, then you have no hope to get there, right? And so that's critical towards progress, is setting that baseline, monitoring the progress, being able to validate that you're on that track, or maybe adjust or tweak and make some adjustments to get there. And then in terms of gaining that meaningful insight, you can gather all the data that you want out of the technology you have, but if you're not taking any action on it, then you're also, probably not gonna get there. And if you're not using that data to do something different, you're not gonna see a change either. And so we can utilize things like software to adjust set points, or actually control or actuate or make some tweaks that maybe in the past we wouldn't have caught until a maintenance round or some other traditional form of the process. So
it's interesting. I hear so often that it just seems like it's this polarized perspective on sustainability and profitability, or ROI. They're just two ends of a spectrum. I don't know that that's necessarily true or not. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, no, we at Emerson, we see sustainability as more of an opportunity, right? Than a challenge that carries some negative connotation with it. Look, if you look at the progress that the world has made over the past, I guess during the sort of industrial age that we've been in over the last 150 years or so, there's certainly challenges that arise across the way, but those businesses that look at them through a different lens and try to turn those into opportunities that can grow their business or maybe make it more efficient to kind of get towards profitability, as you mentioned, I think are the ones that succeed. If you've got it out there that it's something that you're going to be butting your head up against, you probably need a little bit of a mindset shift to be successful.
And it makes a lot of sense. It's just a checkbox. It's just a checkbox. Kind of live the mission, so to speak. But it's when I think about it, there's so many different facets, especially in the energy sector right now. From a renewable standpoint, you have wind, you have solar, you've got natural gas. It seemed like the hydrogen market was peaking several years ago, and it sounds like it's starting to make a comeback now. How can Emerson, or how can customers of Emerson leverage technology to compete in the hydrogen market now? Can you share any insights on what's going on there?
Yeah, sure. You're hearing a lot of companies and organizations these days talk about this energy trifecta, where we need to be pursuing sustainable paths of energy. But there's two other legs to the stool there. There's,
Right.
cost, making sure that it's, economical. And then there's the sort of reliability or resiliency area of it. So when you talk about hydrogen, it certainly has that sustainability angle covered, but we've got to get it to where it needs to be cost competitive with other forms of energy. And it needs to be able to be relied upon. So, if I start with cost competitiveness, and then talk about reliability a little bit later, on the cost competitiveness side, with hydrogen and many other things, the sort of old way of doing things is that you'd physically design or engineer or build a plant, let's say on the hydrogen production side, operate it, go back, look at some of the learnings that you gathered from that, methodology, and maybe not go all the way back to the drawing board, but certainly take a couple steps back in the process to make adjustments or changes. Then you need more prototyping, more trials, pilots, and things like that. And in the past, all of this has generally been done in isolation in the hydrogen market. There's been some companies out there playing around with it, but it hasn't necessarily been mainstream to where we're sharing learnings. And so, if you look at the way forward, you've got a lot more organizations, outfits investing in it, which also means you've got more collaboration. You've got digital frameworks that are being brought in to do things faster, scale things faster, be more adaptable and robust, and things of that nature. So, I think that angle of the cost competitiveness is something that's going to be key to having hydrogen land in that energy landscape like some of those other forms. And then, really the second piece is to me the reliability aspect. And I might get a little bit nerdy here with you, Greg, but if you look
It'll
at
be the first time, it's okay.
if you look at hydrogen, you really have to understand, how it operates at the molecular level. It's the lightest gas on Earth, which means from a mass basis, it's incredibly energy efficient. You can pack a lot of energy into a hydrogen molecule. But the inverse is true on a volume basis. I mean, it takes up a lot of space. So what do? You have to compress it significantly. So now you're dealing with high pressures, or you have to cool it to temperatures that are barely above when motion on Earth ceases to, exist. Not only is it the lightest gas, it's incredibly small. So hydrogen can get places that other things can't, which means it can get through seals or elastomers, or it can even get through pipe walls in a certain way. And so there's a whole safety aspect there. And then there's the whole combustibility of it. You look at natural gas that maybe you heated up your tea kettle this morning to have a cup of tea. The flammability range of natural gas is on the order of 5% mixture with air to 17%. Too little and you won't ignite it. Too much, it's too rich. Hydrogen is about 4 to 74%. Suddenly you've got this reliability issue where you're dealing with something that's a little bit more concerning. So those two things I think are really what organizations need to overcome to really take hydrogen mainstream, so that it's not just sustainable, but it can be delivered safely and cost effectively.
So what, from your perspective, then, what are you doing at Emerson to kind of catalyze that entire hydrogen initiative? I mean, where do you see that market going? Where do you see it being best utilized from an energy source standpoint and a sustainability perspective?
Yeah, well, I guess Emerson's viewpoint is that it's going to take, especially in the early stages, us applying the infrastructure to get hydrogen to many different avenues from the start. There are viewpoints out there on where the best use of hydrogen is. And for example, should we be looking at blending it with natural gas, or is that sort of a waste of the potential of hydrogen? Does it need to go into vehicles, or should we leave that for electric vehicles and batteries and things of that nature? And really our view is that at this stage of the game, there's really nowhere that we shouldn't be innovative and try to bring it to bear in terms of the market, because that's only going to build out the infrastructure. It's going to get more and more people involved. It's going to help us to learn. And eventually it's going to do things that I just mentioned, which is bring that cost competitiveness down. And through dealing with it, we're going to become more safety conscious about it, have more reliable solutions and things of that nature. So at this point in the game, I think the jury's still out. What we're trying to do at Emerson is enable those customers, no matter whether they're on the production end or the transport end or storage end or various different types of end use. If that makes sense.
Brandon, I understand that, it's an emerging market, but it's the smallest and teeniest of the elements in the upper left-hand corner of the periodic table. But what are some of those areas that are being explored right now? Maybe just give us a wide brushstroke of what's being looked at from Emerson's perspective and just the hydrogen market in general.
Yeah, sure. Well, like I said earlier, we at Emerson really operate across the entire value chain. And so what that means is that we've got customers who are looking at producing hydrogen, and I'm sure that you and many others have heard of all the various ways you can do it, and the color wheel that comes out when we reference hydrogen production.
Right.
But we're playing there, both in looking at how can we optimize electrolysis to take renewable sources on the input side and output hydrogen. We're also looking at some of the more traditional ways where we're utilizing the natural gas infrastructure to generate hydrogen, which can enable that infrastructure build out at a relatively manageable cost. We're in the middle sector, if you will, in terms of transporting hydrogen. What are the ways to do that, either in pure form or by using some type of carrier, ammonia, methanol, or others to move it and then ultimately store it. And then we're involved in the downstream end in terms of the consumption of hydrogen, whether that's in industry or even in things like heating or fuel or even vehicles. And so if I maybe just go into that in terms of some of the technology and processes that we're in depth at on the vehicle dispensing side. You drive up to a gas station today, Greg, and you expect that what the meter says on the pump is what actually got put into your car. You generally, at least I don't think you do, have any concerns about safety or that there's suddenly going to be an explosion as you're dispensing the product, right? And you drive off and you go on about your day. And so Emerson develops and manufactures meters that are critical to distributing hydrogen into a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, and we do that safely. We've got embedded diagnostics there to be able to understand what's going on. We have our meters approved at accuracy limits that allow for custody transfer. So as you go and pay for that hydrogen at the pump, what you got, and the producer or the distributor of that hydrogen knows that they got paid for what they gave you. And we do that safely so that you can, go on about your business. And so that's just one area that we play in. And it's much the same for other parts of the value chain that I described.
And that example is no small nuance, right? I think folks may take that for granted to some extent, right? It's just, you pour a pitcher of liquid into a container and boom, it's measured and away you go. Not quite the same for hydrogen, right?
Not exactly, but we've been dealing with hydrogen. The documented cases that we've been able to dig up go back at least 35 years, and frankly, we've probably been dealing with it even longer than that. It's just that we didn't have the case studies written down or archived. So we've got the experience and the expertise in that domain, and that's what we bring to our customers. Is hey, we've got not only that expertise, but we've got that advantage in that since we're dealing with folks really across the value chain, and since we're dealing with standards bodies and consortia and things of that nature, well, I tend to think that we have a bit of an advantage in that we have a 30,000 foot view of kind of everything that's happening in that hydrogen puppet show. And so we can bring that back to our customers through case studies and learnings and all that stuff. And that's how we provide the value. So not easy, but something that we enjoy, and we like to push the limits in terms of that technological innovation.
Excellent. Well, thanks for the insight. Thanks for sharing with us, Brandon.
All right. Appreciate it, Greg.
All right. Take care.